So let me begin by welcoming all of you to the Association of Indian Research Scholars inaugural e-lecture. Good morning, everyone. We will get to the presentation shortly, but before that, let me remind all the participants to switch their videos off for better streaming. Also use the chat box only to share questions for the speaker along with your designation and affiliations. Please avoid sharing your emails and names unnecessarily. And now let me introduce myself. I am Ariba Ahsanat Moazzam, Senior Research Scholar at the Department of Political Science, University of Hyderabad. And it is with great pleasure that I invite all of you to the inaugural e-lecture of Association of Indian Research Scholars, or as we like to call it, AIRS, on the post-COVID world order by Professor Muhammad Moazzam Ali, former HOD, Department of Political Science, University of Hyderabad. I would now like to request Zeba Moazzam, research scholar at the University of Hyderabad, to walk us through the inception of Association of Indian Research Scholars. Over to you, Zeba.
Thank you, Ariba. I'll begin. Association of Indian Research Scholars, also known as AIRS, is the brainchild of Ariba Ahsanat, the president of this association. It was created to bring together like-minded, intellectually inclined, and enthusiastic research scholars of our generation, and to collectively increase our knowledge base while also interacting with the best minds in the world. To this end, we have garnered the support of some of the best in their field, including Professor Muhammad Moazzam Ali, Professor and HOD, Department of Political Science, University of Hyderabad, Professor Zoya Hassan, Professor Emeritus, Center for Political Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, Professor Alfredo Toro Hardy, retired Venezuelan diplomat, scholar, professor, and public intellectual, Dr. Aparna Devure, Assistant Professor at the University of Hyderabad, Professor Rajan Harshe, Professor of Political Science and the former Vice Chancellor of Allahabad Central University, Paul Szymanski, expert at the Space Strategy Center, Carnegie Mellon University, Albuquerque, New Mexico, Dr. Ernest Rockwell, professor and editor of Journal of Indo-Pacific Affairs, and many others. The aim of this association, the aim of an association like AIRS is to not only provide a platform for young scholars to connect with experts, but also to have intellectually stimulating and interactive sessions with them. In order to make this happen, we aim to host webinars, e-lectures, seminars, talks, book discussions, and distinguished lectures. In the future, we also intend to expand towards doing conferences, seminars, symposiums, and book discussion panels. Through these mediums, AIRS intends to promote a seamless and harmonious interaction and engagement between the social sciences and humanities communities in the country. It also aspires to bring together people to hold discussions, debates, and conversations on theory, research methodology, research ethics, research practices, and to bring everyone within one ambit. The future of AIRS holds dynamic experiences. We intend to bring the Indian community closer to the international community, not only through lectures and seminars, but also through publications. We are working towards building writing opportunities for our vibrant community of writers and academicians at AIRS. As this inaugural lecture proves, AIRS intends to focus on the most relevant issues in the world and the various pressing scenarios on the national and international scene. Following AIRS will help you stay on the top of not only current affairs and get an in-depth analysis of burning topics, but it will also give you the opportunity to expand your knowledge base to the diversity of our events. You can now follow AIRS on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, WhatsApp, Telegram, as well as its own site, airs.org.in. Thank you, Ariba. Handing it over back to you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Zeba, for the lucid introduction of AIRS. I now request Sai Komaraju Amulya, Senior Research Scholar, Department of Communications, SN School, University of Hyderabad, to please introduce the speaker. Over to you, Amulya.
Thank you so much, Ariba and Seva. We have with us today Dr. Muhammad Moazzam Ali. Dr. Muhammad Moazzam Ali, former HOD and Professor of Political Science, University of Hyderabad, has over 90 published research articles and 2 books to his credit. His first book, The Collapse of the Soviet Union, The Nationality Causes, was published in 2004, followed by his editorial work, Threat Perception in a Globalizing World, with special reference to India in 2013. He did his MPhil and PhD from JNU, and he studied in Moscow for over 2 years. He is fluent in Russian apart from English and his native language, Urdu. He has delivered lectures across the world and was also selected by the UGC to give special lectures at the Institute of State and Law and the Institute of Oriental Studies, Moscow. He was also invited by Uppsala University, Sweden, and was sponsored by Maison de Sion de l'Homme to visit Paris. He attended the Eurasian Conference in Antalya, Turkey. Apart from publishing articles in various edited books, research journals, magazines, newspapers, and delivering lectures across the world, he has also given several radio and TV interviews and lectures. Thank you, Professor Mohd Ali, for being with us here today. Over to you.
Thank you, Amulya. Now, as we are all gathered here to learn about world order, let me say a few words on the topic. I think world order is a misnomer. It attempts to describe the realities of international relations, but seems to fall short in capturing it accurately in its entirety. The pertinent question remains, is there an order or a disorder that best defines the international system? Most of the theories and approaches to international relations describe the system as anarchic, from realism to liberalism, neo-realism to neoliberalism, and even social constructivist theory. These theories not only identify the system as anarchic, but also offer reasons and ways to deal with it. Yet, the concept of world order has gained significant attention and popularity. The term world order is used not to define the geopolitical distribution of power among the world's powerful states. Henry Kissinger, in his 2014 book World Order, observes that our age insistently and at times even desperately is in pursuit of a concept of world order. No truly global world order has ever existed, he acknowledges. When a historical overview is taken, all the major civilizations and empires have always harbored a vision, or was it illusion of some form of world order. They expressed it sometimes inertly and at other times aggressively in their rhetoric and actions. Historically, some of the major world orders that can be identified are the European world order, which includes Roman, Greek, British, among others, the Islamic vision of world order, the Chinese view of world order, and the American perception of world order. I am sure our esteemed speaker will speak comprehensively on the concept of world order before moving on to the changes and continuities of the present world order that will in the post-COVID world order. I now invite Professor Moazzam Ali to share with us his astute insights on the topic. Over to you, Professor Moazzam Ali.
الاقتدار انداختم ما يفوت مثلا يجيش
I request all the participants to please mute themselves. Thank you. Over to you, Professor.
Thank you very much. Good morning to all of you. I should begin by thanking the organizers for giving this retired old ailing man to speak on a subject of great importance, although I have not been in touch with the subject for almost 3 years. Please, before I start, I would like all of you to note that we are talking about world order without a world government, without a body of universally accepted international law, without compulsory membership of the world organizations. In the absence of all of these, we have to think of international order. I had the temptation to add the word disorder into my topic, but then that would have compounded the problems. So therefore, I resisted from doing it. But all the same, if you ask me whether has there been any world order any time in history, my answer would definitely be in the negative, But uh, why do we actually look for or hanker for an order, world order? There are a number of reasons for it. Some of them I might mention. The uh, first reason that comes to mind is that we all intend to make international relations uh, orderly and predictable. If you can predict and conduct your relations orderly, that's a great gain for the world. The second reason why we look for is order is the very antithesis of uh, disorder, and disorder could be variation of anarchies. Western political thought in general and universally also, anarchy is not something which anybody likes. They they would like to have orderly conduct of relations between states. So we have this aversion for anarchy universally, and particularly in Western political thought. The third reason that comes to mind to have order is to avoid war and maintain a sustainable peace. Wars have wars could never be avoided. It's a fact of history. Even now, right now, wars are going on. One scholar, I remember many years ago, he had calculated the time, exact time, within which a war breaks out in some part of the world. Right now, we are faced with Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, and the death toll is rising. So, how to avoid war and how to maintain peace? It is in this context that we look for a world order where orderly conduct of international relations could be carried out. Now, it's not just a question of peace, but peace which can be sustainable. If you can establish peace once, it's not enough. It has to be a sustainable peace. And for that, order is required. How can we achieve that? There are certain mechanisms which have been tried before, and perhaps many more mechanisms would be tried. Uh, but I'm delighted, I must say, to see this technology. In our days, there was no such technology. So I'm just directly talking to you. We are located in different distances and so on. It's a great pleasure indeed, and I hats off to those who developed this technology. Now, coming to the presentation, I would divide my presentation into four parts. And whatever I'm going to say, it has to fall within these four parts. The first part is COVID-19 and its impact. What impact COVID-19 had on the global scenario. Second is the requirement of world order. What are the requirements of world order? How can we establish world order for a considerably long time? Third is sustainability of the world order. Can we establish and then sustain world order? The fourth is the possibilities of the world order in future. That is, world order itself falls within the domain of philosophy and speculation. Uh, Having said that, I'm venturing out my neck by proposing something which you may not agree, but somehow I feel that approximates the truth. And that is, variations of disorder sometimes approximate order. Now, there are people who argue that there is always an order in a disorder, there is a logic to disorder, but the fact remains that politics is the art of possible. We can achieve whatever is possible to achieve. Uh, we cannot idealistically maintain that we'll have world peace, world order, and everything that can possibly make life more acceptable, but that is not practicable. We will see as we proceed further into this. Now, in this context, I must mention there is nostalgia for Cold War. Why do you think there is nostalgia for Cold War? International relations were simpler. World was divided into two hostile camps. There were a number of countries which uh, fell into the category of third world countries. Now this expression has become obsolete. Third world countries, and they were mostly online. Your friends and enemies were known. Your camps were known, and therefore it became possible to predict what state would behave in what way under the circumstances. So that is why we have nostalgia for the Cold War. Nonetheless, the uncertainties involved in uh, international order, in peace, and so on and so forth is well summed up in Richard Haas's 2017 book. It's called A World in Disarray. Yes, the world remains in disarray and continues to be so. In fact, many more dimensions of disarray and disorder are added as the time passes. Uh, and what are the new dimensions? One of them, I'm sorry for the interruption, one of the most important new aspects to be looked into is COVID-19. And a word about it is in order. Uh, Laymen do not know what exactly is this virus, why was it produced, how was it produced, how can it be controlled. Hardly much is known about this. Was it stolen from some country, or speculation is from the United States and the Chinese because of their ham-handedness, and also because of lack of technology, leaked this virus into the world? Or if you want to know the nature and purpose of the war, sometimes in the context of the pro-democracy agitation going on in Hong Kong, one took two very wrong conclusions also. That maybe that was meant for some of them, uh, but it has to be admitted. But even now, after almost 2 years, we still do not know much about this nature of this virus. Not knowing this, Russia has made a claim that they have developed an effective vaccine for this, and Putin's daughter is already vaccinated with this injection. Uh, it was reported on October 10th, 2020, that Professor Susan Weiss of the Microbiology Department of Microbiology, Pennsylvania School of Medicine, University of Pennsylvania, she argued that some viruses like SARS-CoV-2 like viruses could evolve naturally. You don't have to purposefully produce them. You evolve naturally. Such viruses evolve naturally, and we may face many more pandemics in future. If Professor San is right, then the Chinese theory, which they have propounded, sounds credible, if not totally acceptable. And that is that this virus uh, appeared in several parts of the world where perhaps research is going on in certain specific spheres. And this virus developed automatically there. But China was the first to report it and also take preventive measures uh, about it. Uh, Perhaps Sushant-based observations give credence to this belief. Uh, Now, how was it developed? Chinese report that it is developed uh, from bats and pangolins in China before infecting human beings. It infected the bats and the pangolins. Uh, Even then, all the vital questions about the production and leaking of this virus are still not known. They're shrouded in mystery. There's a lot of cover up from China, from other countries also. The Chinese are turning around and calling others cheats because they thought it is they who produced and they perhaps stole from them and because of lack of technology got leaked. Right? But nonetheless, the virus and its leak has created havoc with the world. Uh, I'll come to the statistics in a minute, but on the 75th anniversary of the establishment of the United Nations, the chief aim of the United Nations was to stop the Third World War, in which it has succeeded. Uh, at this meeting, the Secretary General Guterres, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, uh, speaks of a very interesting phenomenon. That is, we have deficit of we have surplus of multilateral problems, but deficit of solutions. And at the very same meeting, he, he observed that pandemic COVID-19 has exposed the fragilities of the world. Uh, in, the, in his address, President Trump blamed China squarely for releasing this virus to the world. He specifically took China's name. President Xi Jinping, instead of directly replying to Trump, only said that uh, we can face this menace only unitedly. He invited all the countries to join in a family of sorts and face this problem. Then only it will be possible to face it successfully. Uh, he said the world should embrace the concept of a family uh, instead of falling into the trap of clash of civilizations. These ideas were dated, but yet the Chinese foreign ministries and writers, for example, they use the word sphere of influence very frequently, which is a colonial hang-up. And this uh, suggestion that uh, trap of clash of civilizations is also dated by now. But the concept has been debated so widely that I think hardly anything new can be said about this. Civilizations are neither units nor do they clash the way Huntington believed. It was rather simplistic. And lastly, he said China has no desire for Cold War, hegemony, and expansion of spheres of influence. But yet, we find, to our dismay, that such ideas are still in circulation and states are pursuing them. For example, this Quad, creation of Quad now, that is India, Australia, Japan, and United States, quadrilateral agreements to counter China. Some time ago, it was proposed that perhaps India, China, or many other countries could coexist without being essentially in clash. But the mentality is such, perhaps some of the Western countries cannot live without enemies. Americans were flabbergasted when Cold War ended. They didn't have the enemy, they had to find an enemy. And they found Muslim world as the new enemy. So these enemies need not be sought. Perhaps you can all coexist with little adjustment in this world and decently. And China has declared it as a bulwark against the international system, which was considered, if you look at Mao's times, People's War concept. The world was very hostile for the Chinese. So now it's a quite a change, but yet they are at least 30 to 40 years behind. China wanted dialogue and negotiated settlement of international disputes. Fine enough, these are good words, provided they are followed. Nagorno-Karabakh, for example, they have come to the table, they negotiated the first round, but then peace could not be maintained. The war once again broke out. But Trump continues to blame China for the leaking of this virus and has warned China of dire consequences in future. Well, such warnings have always been issued against adversaries throughout the history of international relations. But the point is to accommodate and somehow scrape through the crisis that they face. Right now, a word about the COVID virus and its consequences. It has played havoc with the world. Mike Ryan, the head of the 34-member group, uh, executive board of the emergency operations of the World Health Organization, spoke to the board recently that 1 out of 10 people is affected by the coronavirus. And we are headed towards a disaster. That's what his prediction is. Bill Gates thought that perhaps COVID could be eliminated first in the first world and then subsequently in the second and third world. Now these concepts have become outdated. These emanated from Sweden, first world, second world, and third world. After the collapse of the second world, the, the, the third world became second world. Uh, But for the convenience, because we are used to them, using them, we continue to use them, but they have become outdated. Uh, a comprehensive study alone can bring out the havoc COVID-19 has created, the consequences spilled over into political, economic, social, psychological domains, actually. It came to such a low level that in the funerals of dear and near ones, one could not go. Such was the situation that prevailed. Over 300 million people were affected with the cold virus. And then about a million people, or more than a million people, died because of the virus. And then we have economies all over the world grind to a halt, not only in the first world but all in other countries, poor countries also. According to one estimate, 150 million people were pushed into absolute poverty because of this. You can just imagine the situation now, consequences for the working classes and poor people all over the world. Uh, Workers and the poor were more direly affected because they live hand to mouth, they have no savings, and they have to earn their bread every day through work. And they were confined to, because of the lockout, if they are confined to their homes, obviously they could not earn and live. It was a period of great misery for them. For almost 2 years, they have suffered uh, very badly. Uh, Human rights violations earlier were getting highlighted very forcefully in the international media. With this COVID, all of those news items have been pushed to the background. Now we are not talking of any more rights and so on, uh, but concentrating on the toll. Amusingly, we have all news items carrying this component of how many died, how many were hospitalized, how many recovered, and that's it. But nothing much about the nature of the virus, what has been done to stop it. Now, Russians have claimed that they have an injection for it. India is also on the verge of a breakthrough by producing an injection. So is the case with Oxford unit. But all of these things are going to come up without knowing much about the virus. Or perhaps in technical terms, this cannot be explained to the world. What exactly is the nature of virus and how can that be contained? How can that injection be effective to control it? If everything else was affected, social, economic, political, psychological spheres, then world order, such as it was, also got undermined because of the COVID-19. It has collateral consequences, like, for example, many governments which had failed to fulfill the promises they made at the time of elections now got a lease of life. They have now been able to cover up their failures through COVID-19 by pushing people into their houses. Don't come out and stay home and cover your faces and all kinds of restrictions on them. So going out became impossible for several months, I think. Overall psychological toll of this COVID virus uh, requires very detailed study, technical as well as general detailed study. And perhaps the only safe thing that we can say is that it will take years before normalcy is restored, if at all. We don't know. Once this virus is leaked, it will remain in the sphere. But one thing is very clear that chemical weapons which were developed after the Second World War, the whole stock will have not to be destroyed at least compulsorily because we live in a world which is just one. We are just one earth. If you tamper with it somewhere, it will show its effects elsewhere. About the nuclear weapons, we had 3 Mile Island accident. We had Chernobyl. We had leakages in other places, right? But they did not so direly affect the world as COVID-19. This shows the future of chemical warfare is nil. You can never use chemical weapons uh, unless you want to destroy the world. Of course, the psychology of going to war and destroying the world is there. The United States and the former Soviet Union, now Russia, have enough nuclear weapons to destroy this world several dozen times. Even that doesn't satisfy them. Putin has now introduced new set of weapons. Of course, Americans must be keeping track of that, and they have developed missiles and new technologies how to kill more and more people. Why can't we think of stopping the psychology of killing people, which is becoming just not just anachronistic but disgusting. All the time you have new weapons which kill more and more people. So it will take years. For all these dire consequences, China was not asked to apologize. No compensation also was sought from China by other countries. Except some stray noises were made in Australia and the United States. The China should be held responsible and should be made to pay. But others have highlighted only how to uh, take health measures to counter the COVID-19 effect. Whereas some effort should have been made to pinpoint the blame, who has done it and how can that country brought to account. This has not been done. It is because of these anarchical responses in different ways. Once again, we have to come back to the question of world order. Right? And the fundamental question is why do we seek world order at all? If it cannot be established, if it cannot be sustained, why seek it? There are some fundamental reasons I would mention. All of you are conversant, all educated people conversant, to run international relations on predictable lines. International relations have always been run on very unpredictable lines. Earlier, what used to be called secret diplomacy, we had diplomats very secretly meeting and deciding the fate of countries and wars. You know how the First World War started, and how before that Franco-Prussian War started. You have individual leaders making decisions and also making difference also like Bismarck or Charlemagne before. So you have uh, what you call anarchical um, touch to international relations. The realist school of thought is right in saying that there is anarchy in the international system because the states are based on, now we have 193 states, they are based on or work on sovereignty and territoriality. I'll come to that point in a minute. Uh, Now, second reason why we look for an order is it is a good antidote or the best antidote to disorder. We are very apprehensive of anarchy. We don't want anarchy anytime. Universally and also geographically, Europe, for example, European political thought had an aversion to anarchy. If we just quickly recall social contract theories, the projection of state of nature is very anarchical. And Hobbes concluded that life becomes nasty, brutish, and short if you have anarchy of that kind. Locke did not have that kind of an anarchical state of nature, but yet he pleaded for establishment of civil society and finally uh, for a uh, responsible government. Okay. And this, of course, was a breach for him, but yet, through general will, situation was sought to be stabilized. So we have a long history. In Islamic world, you you have uh, the injunction that more than one people going together or traveling together should choose their leader. They should choose a leader and follow him. So anarchy is not liked by anyone anywhere, right? Be it China or India, there also there have been instances of this that anarchy should be avoided and order should be maintained. How to do it is a different question. Uh, to establish sustainable order and peace, uh, different versions were tried of order in ancient times and in modern times. In ancient times, the Chinese had the idea of a middle kingdom having mandate of heaven, and this kingdom was surrounded by barbaric states who were tribute paying. Tribute paying barbarian states was their formulation within which they wanted to conduct their world, which was Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia was their backyard. In Europe, for example, we have Westphalian system dating from 1648. Westphalian system was established. Of course, it has received setbacks, but the system continued and it became universal over a period of time. Uh, we had empires. Empires don't establish order, they swallow up defined countries. Okay, and then we had different versions of world order under unipolar world, multipolar world, bipolar world, and when there is no pole. Each one of these configurations established a different kind of world order. Right? Uh, as far as the Westphalia system is concerned, it received very severe blows in the 20th century. Fascist Italy, Nazi Germany, Stalin's Russia, UK's world empire, and the United States' 200 years of history is filled with instances of uh, what I just now said. Uh, Several blows to the Westphalia system. Two cardinal principles of Westphalia system were territoriality and sovereignty. These two principles were subjected to serious uh, concussions by a number of uh, developments like empire building, imperialism, development of capitalism, now corporate capitalism,
Somehow,
international law,
being disturbed. Boring.
regulations. All of these have subjected international
ये
order.
लीव बोलना इधर कैसा डन स्पीकिंग
Somebody is speaking in between. Thank you. We also had a situation not long ago where a number of international organizations, regional organizations, actually were having a sway, whether it was ASEAN or Arab League or Organization of Andean States, and so many others. And then we had United Nations and specialized agencies. The membership of all of these organizations and developments actually cut into the sovereignty of the states. If you sign a bilateral agreement with some country, the terms of those agreements restricted your sovereignty. So what I'm saying is that Austin's theory of sovereignty stands totally undermined today because, as once it was said, that only a madman can have that kind of sovereignty. Sovereignty is undermined through a number of processes that I mentioned just now. Because of this, there was this vision that was developed that we have to live in a borderless world without borders. And capitalism has already penetrated all areas. In the 20th century, Lenin spoke of the rentier state and a labor aristocracy, and how capitalism uh, reached a saturation point, have to spill over and go to other countries. And as a result, integrate the world. Marx called it a very progressive process of integration of the world, but nonetheless, its consequences are not always beneficial. Now, the United States has embarked on protectionism and also bilateralism, but even that will not be seriously affecting this process because we still have technologies, we still have corporate capitalism and varieties of economic mechanisms which are actually integrating the world into one. And we are forced to think in global terms. When the functionalist school of thought criticized the uh, realist school of thought, they said the realist school of thought invests in states powers that they don't have. Like all the resources of the world are very uh, unevenly distributed all over the world. And the states pretend that they can provide everything required by the citizen on their own, which is a lie. You cannot provide everything because you don't have the resources. They are spread all over the world. Uh, so now, after COVID-19 particularly, we have a situation where we have to think in global terms. Now, in global terms, if you think, then what would be the nature of the world order? And how can we sustain it? This takes us to speculative field. Your guess is as good as mine. Now, while guessing or while thinking about this, some scholars have come up with a series of very well-researched books on the subject. I have 3, 4 books in my mind right now. I would like to just share the names of these books with you. Henry Kissinger's book called The World Order, Richard Haas's book, A Word in Disarray, and Mary Slaughter's book, A New World Order, and then Shashi Tharoor and Samir Saran, The New World Disorder and India's Imperative. Reading these books illuminated many of the dark spots I had in my mind about the world order. One can very profitably read these books and benefit and then think in change conditions with COVID-19 already having happened, how can you have a sustained world order? So this was the first part of my presentation. I repeat my suggestions made in the beginning that in international relations we don't have a perfect world order. It was never established, neither could be established. So therefore what we have is a disorder of a different kind at different epochs. Now we can say that what we call disorder has many variations. Some variations approximate order in international relations. It could be debated. Uh, I could be criticized for this, but nonetheless, this is what the situation is. Uh, I also give the example of Cold War, where international relations were predictable, largely, not entirely, largely, because we know that during that time, Yugoslavia happened, Hungarian Revolution took place, Cuban Missile Crisis 1956, Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962 happened, Suez Canal Crisis of 1956, Albania defied Moscow, Vietnam War, Chile in 1973. All these things happened during the Cold War. Although we say the international relations were largely predictable, but it's not an absolute statement. Many such things did happen during the Cold War also. Yet, the fact remains that total war was avoided. No Third World War took place. To that extent, the United Nations and its aims were successful for 75 years, which is a long, very long spell where there has been world peace of this kind. Of course, we now are faced with Nagorno-Karabakh. We are faced with crisis in Syria, Libya, Afghanistan. So these problems have cropped up, they have come. Now, there is a section of uh, the countries, they call themselves G4, India, uh, uh, Brazil, Japan, and Germany. They think much depends on the composition of the Security Council of the United Nations. As you know, the P5 have veto power. All of these countries want a veto power and they want reforms of the United Nations. The attempt should have been to dilute veto power, to reduce it to minimum or nil. Instead, more countries want to join and have the veto power, which is deplorable. That shows the old Cold War psychology, which we have to overcome. Uh, Now, if in this situation with 193 sovereign territorial states, we want to have world order, then what are the requirements of world order? What do we require to have world order and also sustain it? The first and foremost requirement is education. These priorities can be differently brought together by different people, but education is central to it. Education would create the public opinion, international public opinion, and public opinion can exert pressure on the states to behave in a rational way. Uh, then the third requirement would be universally recognized and accepted and enforceable international law. We still don't have. Even now, four decades ago, we used to read books like Oppenheimer or Brierly and others. They used to say that international law of war is more codified than international law of peace. The situation has not changed since then. So universally accepted international law, can that be made enforceable through an institutional mechanism? That takes us to the question of a sustainable peace can be achieved through institutional mechanisms. Can we establish institutions where arbitration could be done? It should be acceptable to all the states who are disputant on a particular issue. For example, Nagorno-Karabakh. Can there be an institutional mechanism where both the parties feel that justice has been done to them and they could withdraw from war? We still don't have a situation like that. Then the fifth reason, fifth requirement would be orderly conduct of international relations, which should be rule-based. There should be rules, and the relations should be conducted on the basis of the rules of international behavior. War as an instrument of foreign policy has to be either eliminated or reduced to ineffectiveness. You you cannot have war and also peace at the same time. So rule-based conduct of international relations can help, and it also can help to predict international relations largely, if not totally. And through this, we can have sustainable uh, international relations. Now, I would venture into suggesting that perhaps, however defective the concept of collective security is, some kind of collective security element has to be woven into the international law and international organizations. Uh, More pressure, moral and others, even boycott, even show of strength to aggressors in international relations. All of these ideas have to be somehow woven so that there is punch to world order as we want it to be established. Otherwise, world order would not have the punch. People would not listen. As we say jocularly, unless the policeman is on the door, we don't behave. So here we behave if there is a punch to international order, and that punch can come by weaving collective security arrangements, isolating the aggressor, moral pressure, world public opinion. All of these ideas should be brought together in a more concrete way. And these have been known to us for decades, but it has to be done more concretely so that there is punch to it. And states think twice before pursuing war as an instrument of foreign policy. This is what uh, uh, I would suggest. The next thing that comes to mind is changing our mindset. As I said, you necessarily have to have enemies. If some country is developing something, it is against you. And then zero-sum games. If your loss is my gain, my loss is your gain. And this intolerability of mindset has to go. We are living in a 21st century and our mindset accordingly has to change. And this habit of big powers uh, fishing in troubled waters is very long. For example, this conflict might spill over because now Turkey is making noises, Armenians are looking to Russia, right? Mercenaries are coming from Syria to Azerbaijan. This could have a spilling over effect. Like the First World War, only one assassination had taken place and the whole world got plunged into First World War. Similar situations might develop. Nagorno-Karabakh is one such situation. It could happen in other areas also. So ultimately, it is effective international law, international organization, world public opinion. I know you might be thinking that I'm going into moral questions and morality may not work, but it's important. So mindset is important. Some things are happening within the country now. There is moral pressure now. Why such a thing is allowed to happen? People are coming onto the street. They are not gaining anything. It's moral pressure. Their conscience is bruised by seeing all these brutalities around. So that kind of a pressure. I recall Winston Churchill being advised that a new generation of weapons can be developed in Britain, which would completely neutralize Germany and which would establish uh, British military strength all over the world. Churchill turned around and asked, do you have any moral ground on it? Do you have any moral ground on which you can justify this kind of development of weapons? And so on. So ultimately, it does come down to morality, our conscience, our mindset, and thinking. All of these have to change. In this regard, I recall the words of preamble of UNESCO, which was adopted in 1935, and it reads, I'm paraphrasing, since war begins in the minds of men, it is in the minds of men that international peace has to be laid. How they can be laid, how those foundations of peace can be laid, as I've been saying, international laws, organization, morality, public opinion, all such series of ideas which are old, which are known to us, can lead us to a situation where there can be, if not a total, at least semblance of world order, and life becomes more predictable and livable in the world. Now, what about the future of international order? As I said, once you come to this point, you enter into the field of theory and philosophy. And you, you can try many methods. Many have been tried and many have been successful and they failed also. If Tashkent agreement could be signed between India and Pakistan in Moscow and mediation efforts by other countries or arbitration mechanisms of various kinds, they can help reduce war or avoid war, reduce tensions. Now we can develop uh, war preventing mechanisms. Sometimes people call it peace mongering through mechanisms which can stop war. All of this could be tried. Some of them have been tried and found to be wanting. Others also could be tried. For example, collective security idea. Collective security idea finally became almost its antithesis. The whole world has to be on its toes and be cautious all the time. Now, sometimes people wonder why the whole world would be interested in a particular question. For example, I was in Finland, and the person I was talking to was watching a football match, and suddenly he turned his attention to me and then for something. He said, "You are from India." India. He repeated India 2, 3 times. Yeah, it's too far away. And if it is too far away, why should Finland stick out its neck for any problem involving India and other countries? The world is too large and too varied for every country to take interest. We also don't have a Greek city-state situation where all the members or citizens would assemble at one place and decide about things. Only some representatives can be sent now. We have some kind of indirect democracy where representatives are sent. Will they do justice to, or sometimes the very theoretical question of can you really transfer your uh, thinking to someone else, and then someone else can argue out your case exactly as you want. These are all very serious theoretical issues. But nonetheless, if we don't attend that, do we just fold our hands and stand still and do nothing about it till such time as the aggressor knocks on your door? You cannot afford to do that either, particularly in the age where we have nuclear weapons, where there exists possibility of destroying the world many times over. So all of these considerations have to be kept in mind before we can think of a viable international order. Could there be a viable international order, global order, or world order? Mind you, these words are different, international or global or world, can be maintained is very much an open question. Your opinion is as good as mine. And therefore, I would like to cover any further possibilities of expansion of this area by facing questions. In fact, I have told the organizers that I would cover much ground by answering questions that come up from them. So now you are free to ask questions and we'll have a debate on the subject.
Thank you, sir, for that enlightening lecture on world order. I don't just speak for myself when I say that I have learned so much and benefited immensely from your lecture. I would like to now request Dr. Anshuman Behra, Associate Professor, Conflict Resolution and Peace Research Program, National Institute of Advanced Studies, Bangalore, to conduct the question and answer segment. Over to you, Dr. Anshuman Behra.
Thank you, Jeba. Hope I'm audible to everyone.
Yes, sir, you are.
What a lovely Sunday this has been for me. I'm listening to my guru after a long time. It was feeling that exactly 20 years before I was listening to him as a master student in my classroom. So thank you, sir, for this lovely lecture. And I was very obligedly taking the notes, and we have some very questions, wonderful questions we have got. Let me just go through them. Before that, if I can try to sort of summarize what Professor Ali actually mentioned. The question of morality that was highlighted time and again. Now if you are actually dealing with this question on the order as something that is desirable, and then dealing with the question that how much you actually can achieve in terms of maintaining an order at the world level, then you do not have any other kind of an option but to resort to some sort of questions on morality. That would have possibly a lot of good answers. Sir started with some of the very provoking kind of concepts. One was about how then are two different ways of looking at some of the questions that has been understood at the western side, and how the people at the eastern part actually have understood some concepts like the anarchy. When anarchy was as a western political concept that sir actually mentioned, when it was sort of, discarded, or it's not a desirable kind of, way of looking at the things, we have something called the enlightened kind of an anarchy, the concept that Gandhi would actually, put a lot of highlight on. Anarchy is not at all that, a bad term to deal with or to have in the society. You need to think for enlightened kind of an anarchy where every actor or every unit of analysis at the world order is aware of its rights, its responsibilities, and respectful to each other. Okay. And then I was remembering, these days I'm working on conflict. I'm remembering a wonderful book by Statis Calibus, again, another American scholar. That is, he said, absence of order necessarily leads to conflict. I had written to him long back, it's all about how about a conscious chaos or a conscious conflict in a society. People, it's not that, it's a fast thing. People like George Simmel would actually talk about, how conflict also brings a lot of stability in the society, but it has to be very consciously kind of, thing. People should be knowing about their limitations. Okay. So these are some kind of, the important aspect of Sir's talk was also the highlighting on the need for the sustainability aspect of order. Okay, that is what people have tried. They have given their kind of views, starting from Mehboob Haq, starting from now the sustainable development goals that has been hijacked by the economists mostly. They're talking about to ensure a bit of poverty, lack of poverty in the society, and all that will ensure it a lot of. But then, coming to purely into, looking for a kind of, world order during this pandemic, this has been a wonderful Sunday, listening to my guru. Okay, now we have a few questions. First question is again from our student, Dr. Matthew Sinu Simon. Okay, it's lovely to hear from you, Matthew. Okay, long time. So Matthew has a good question. It's about, he's asking, sir, has regional organizations, multilateral organizations like the World Health Organization, the European Union, failed in their duty, or is it left to in their duties in containing the spread of the spread of COVID-19? Okay, he's asking. Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's asking, has regional organizations like the WHO or the European Union failed in their duties in containing the spread of COVID-19, or is it left to the fate of nation states in shaping the post-COVID-19 world?
You see, I have mentioned President Xi Jinping's address to United Nations that he thinks world should act like a family and unitedly face this menace. Then only we will succeed in doing it. Not to say that World Health Organization or many regional organizations have failed in their duties is to pass the blame unnecessarily on them. It came as a bolt from the blue. Chinese kept this virus leak hidden for 2 weeks, which was very vital, and the leakage took place. And once it is in the sphere, it's very difficult for it to get diffused, or as one estimate puts it, we have to heat the world to 92 degrees to eradicate this virus. It's not possible to do that. So therefore, it's not the blame game that would pay. Now, vaccine development is one such positive step. Perhaps some medication also can be developed. There are people who are getting cured on their own after a quarantine of, say, some months. Boris Johnson and Trump. They both got affected, but they are on the trail right now. So let us concentrate on what can possibly be done by both individual states, individually and collectively, to stop this. It's a global problem, and an approach has to be global. It's not that it's affecting only the United States, or it's affecting India or China or Southeast Asia. It's a global problem, and we have to address that. And perhaps a good forum would be United Nations, which has no longer remained the same as in the early years of its formation. But all the same, we could still try it. We are not flogging the dead horse, but we are flogging a sick horse. But sick horse might still give you some sort of result, because systematically United Nations was undermined by the United States and many other powers. Now, at one point, it looked as if it had remained only of symbolic value. Now, faced with this kind of a crisis, it's possible to revive it to some extent and take it forward to address this question with the consent of all the 193 members of the United Nations.
So we have another very interesting question from University Berlin. We have a friend called Muhammad Ali. So as you mentioned the importance of moral thinking and moral pressure, what does the excellency of the right wing, who do not regard the institutions for what it is, across the world hold for the future of a world order?
I didn't get the question. Please.
Now, he is necessarily asking, when we are stressing importance on the aspects of morality, and we have the rise of right-wing governments across the world, how do you actually conceptualize and how do you actually see the world order in the future?
Very difficult, very difficult indeed. We are in a situation where right-wing forces have an upper hand. Now, even the very idea of democracy is getting undermined. People have come to point out at China and say that without democracy, China has achieved a phenomenal economic development, has pushed millions of poor out of poverty line. So what answer do you give? I say that, all right, yes, we are in a very difficult situation, but nonetheless, morality has certain aspects which are accepted even by the right-wingers. Okay, so hopefully we can still work together to have that kind of moral conscience. As far as you mentioned Gandhi's morality, it has swung on the extreme side. That morality requires a very thinking mind, conscious mind, conscientious mind, and everyone doesn't behave like that. So we don't have too many Gandhis. Gandhi was an exception to the rule. The rule is that we get angry, we want to fight, we resort to aggression, like Napoleon III, for example, in the hair-cutting salon, he was whispered something in his ear and he declared war against Germany. So we still have such people around, okay? And now people have become more cunning. They say something and do something else at the back. World is very complex. You are absolutely right in asking a question like that. Yes, it has become very complex, and we have to have very complex answers too to face the situation.
We have Dr. C. Upendra. He doesn't have a question, but a comment to add to some of the points that you have mentioned.
No.
Okay, Upendra, was that a comment or a kind of, add up?
I did not ask anything. I don't know how it came up.
Okay, but whoever has written that, but this is very important. I'll just read it out. Okay. Maybe.
I'm thankful.
That's okay. Okay. We have a very interesting comment here. Okay. Please comment on how a sovereign nation concept has become a bane on the future of humanity, especially since we as a civilization have failed to protect our environment for ourselves and for our future generations. Do you see the need and possibility of a transnational and or supranational entity to formulate in the post-COVID world?
Uh, right now, if you want me to answer in the context in which we live now, I would say that it's not possible right now. But maybe in future, as we face the consequences, and finally it impinges upon our psychologies that some kind of common approach has to be taken. You see, the question of sovereignty is very old. You are all familiar with the Austin's concept of sovereignty, an absolute sovereignty, sovereign not in the habit of following the like superior and so on. Such sovereignties were rejected, the idea of sovereignty was rejected at the time also, and people argued in terms of establishing different centers of exercise of sovereignty, not just one center, different centers. And as I have mentioned in my talk, that each bilateral agreement you sign, trilateral agreement you sign, regional organization agreement you sign, you part with bits and pieces of sovereignty, which means you don't have your say on on all of those questions, because you have to take into account the agreement partner and also regional organization, and they have to take you into confidence. So that way, sovereignty is a very big, difficult stumbling block in the way of organizing the world on a supranational basis. Now, we have supranational organizations, be it NATO, be it United Nations, be it uh, ASEAN. But these supranational organizations uh, reduce the possibility of absolute exercise of sovereignty. So that way, and territoriality, as I have mentioned, the development of capitalism now at this stage of corporate capitalism has penetrated into territory area. I mean, territory, this has become a kind of laughing stock. It's something like forts stand today. You see, in the age of aerial warfare, forts have become absolutely ridiculous. What do you do with a fort, which was the bulwark in earlier times? It's no longer valid now. So technologies are developing which should render the borders, territories as meaningless. Right now you have internet, which makes nonsense of territories. It crosses over. Everything is known. We have many spy organizations doing their jobs, and we also have positively like Assange, who is now being sought to be tried in the United States. So she got to know a lot of things which she revealed. Otherwise, she would never have known. So one more thing that I would say, many of the uh, students, research scholars are part of this discussion. I would say that our entire knowledge of a discipline, be it political science or international relations, is based on a very small quantum of knowledge. Much of it goes in secrecy. Many things they cannot reveal actually. They are under oath of secrecy. What comes to us is very small, and we have to make a lot of sense out of that small revelation. So that also is a problem that we have to look into. That if we said earlier that open diplomacy decisions should be openly arrived at, we should also say that everything the state does should be known to us. How come that a foreign secretary knows more than you and I as academics? So that information that he has should be passed on to us so that we can become participants in decision making. That doesn't generally happen. But what I'm saying is our thinking and our conclusions are based on too little information, sketchy, uncertain, unverified information.
Yeah. This question that you answered right now, okay, that on the sovereignty aspect, okay, you'll be happy to know this was posed by Dr. Sailaja Nandigam. Sailaja ma'am, we call her very fondly Sailaja Akka. Okay, she was your student 1995-97, okay, University of Hyderabad. Now she is teaching in BITS Pilani in Rajasthan.
Glad to hear about it, huh?
Yeah, so see, that was her question. Okay, so we have one more question from Mr. Sudhir Kumar Agrahari. Now, this is also very interesting. That is where what you mentioned about the lack of information, that is where, and manufacturing a lot of sensationalization around the lack of information, that has also created a lot of kind of, disorder, if I can put it this way, at the world level. Okay, so that is where the role of some extra constitutional kind of an authorities also play a very important role. And the question by Sudhir Kumar Agrahari actually hints towards that. It says, what is the role of deep state theory in framing of COVID-19 world?
What theory?
Deep state. Deep state theory in framing of COVID-19 world.
You see, as I've said, the Chinese are coming out with some information now, slowly, that actually this was leaked, not because Chinese very consciously produced the virus in a lab and they leaked it, or accidentally because of their ham-handedness or lack of technology, it got leaked. That was the point which Trump even now emphasizes and blames China squarely for the leak of this virus. But now Chinese contention is slightly, in fact, I want to pretend credulous, if that is so, that yes, maybe that the technologies across the world, which most of these developed countries were developing, reach a point where certain viruses are created. Let me recall a seminar many, many years ago. One biologist spoke in a seminar devoted to international relations. He said, we are doing too many kinds of research in our labs, producing results which are very harmful to humanity. Since science is not constricted by moral considerations and value systems and so on, we pursue facts wherever they take us. So we are in our labs, we are creating monsters, he said, and they will play havoc with the world. Therefore, please, I'm pleading before you, the scholars of international relations and politics, that please stop us from doing that. Somehow find a mechanism whereby we can't so independently pursue our research. Of course, it is really easily said than done, but then he pleaded very sincerely to us. So it is possible that such viruses are generated and leaked out, and so on, causing the world. And what kind of a sovereignty is this? That your next door neighbor or a faraway country is affected by it. You have no right to do such experiments. Where nuclear disasters like 3 Mile Island or Chernobyl uh, Chernobyl, the effect of the radioactivity was felt in Sweden, not areas surrounding Russia, but just in Sweden. This is suddenly the radiation level has gone up. Why has it gone up? They tried to look for reasons, and ultimately they concluded that something wrong has happened, and then finally Chernobyl came to light, and we got to know what went wrong there, right? And bombing of Vietnam, for example, indiscriminately in Afghanistan and Vietnam, such bombs have been dropped, such experiments have been carried out on human soul that we think and shudder. How could one human being can do this to another? Anyway, this is the kind of imperfect world we live in. We have to make sense of this world that we live in and try to improve it. We have the material such as it is, and with that material we have to experiment.
Yeah, we have a very, this is very interesting. Okay, this has been contested in the past. Okay, we have been grappling with this question. So we have a friend, Muhammad Ilyasuddin, if I pronounce it correctly. So he's saying, if at all we are, desiring for a wonderful world order, who should be leading it? And okay, and who should take the initiative as the head of the family, the world government world family that we are all talking about, and how trustworthy it would be.
You see, Americans have declared themselves leaders, and Western Europe has always accepted American leadership. And people like Kissinger, people uh, traditionally studying international relations, think that if the United States is not in the lead, things will collapse. They'll fall to pieces. That is not so. But to begin with, why should there be a leader? If you have only mentally retarded people need a leader. Intelligent thinking people don't need leaders. They need institutions. Institutions last longer than human life, and these institutional mechanisms, if we can develop, can go a long way in satisfying that need of leadership. Okay, but no, it's very difficult to decide, and democratically deciding is even more difficult. That is why the fascists and the Nazis, they thought British Parliament and other parliaments are talking shops. They can't decide on things. So let there be, they had this principle in their ideology, leadership principle. The fascists had the leadership principle, Nazis had the leadership principle. So follow the leader, stand and obey. That was the slogan. So anyway, democratically deciding something or unanimously deciding something is a very difficult process, but we do not have many intelligent alternatives, better alternatives. So therefore we have to go that way and learn through the hard way how to establish world peace, world order, and supremacy of international law and international organization. And of course, like democracy, you stumble and you learn over a period of time. Can that be effective? Somebody young like you, young people don't have the patience. They want things right now. So older people have that patience. They would rather see that if some time is taken to establish uh, institutional mechanisms to take decisions, maybe that's better than hurriedly acting and getting into a mess.
So we have another question that is little fearful of the future. It has bit of doubt, and it also thinks that, okay, it is not free from kind of, the similar kind of thing. So I'll read out the question. It says, the enemies of humanity have attacked the world with COVID-19 virus. Do you anticipate any other similar issues may rise in the near future? How should one react or be prepared for such disorders?
Now, when COVID-19 was leaked, uh, subsequent research being done, and I have quoted, I think, Professor Weiss. She says that in the process of research in certain areas, viruses are developed. And Chinese have argued that the COVID-19 virus was not only produced in China and leaked. Many countries had this leak, but China alone spoke about it and tried to contain it. I don't know how far that is true, but if Professor Weiss is correct, then we are in for many more leaks of uh, this nature of viruses. And in future, we have to do something about virus itself. how can we possibly do research without leading to viruses of various kinds, which can influence local people, regional people, or international level people? How to avoid that? It's a new field, new area, and a lot of work needs to go into establishing the way we can approach research in this matter. We can't stop research. Research will go on in different places, but we have to have certain guidelines, some mechanism by which we don't allow research to go haywire and harm the humanity.
Okay, so we have another question on the aspect of ethics and the leadership. Okay, this is very interesting. Okay, the Amulya, she is a PhD scholar, Department of Communication from University of Hyderabad. So she is asking what sort of ethical leadership can be imagined at this point. And she has a doubt which she wants to be clarified, that can we borrow from Deleuze's realms to talk about what disorder, talk about world disorder in a productive manner?
Well, as far as ethical question is concerned or moral question is concerned, I'm afraid we are too deficient. We have to educate ourselves for a long time before we can uh, ethically correctly talk about things. Okay, and what's the second last part was?
It is saying, like, can we borrow some ideas of this, the philosophical thing that Deleuze resume to talk about? Yeah, talk about what would the disorder in the productive manner.
Sure, we can do that, and we have been doing it. It's not that it has not been done. We have a long history actually. If from 1648 to now, we think it's almost 400 years. All kinds of ideas and institutions have been tried. It's fine enough. But the point is, we always, after some time, end up in a mess. What should we do? That is a recurrent problem. We run into wars, we run into conflicts. If there is no conflict, we create one. All of these things have been going on. Yes, borrow from any source, but check this. There has to be kind of arbitrary mechanism. There has to be, which should be absolutely objective and acceptable to the party and satisfying to the party. So it's quite okay. I mean, if that can be done.
Yeah. I don't think we have any other questions. Ariba, I hand it over to you now. Okay, no. Matthew has a couple of more questions. Okay, no. Matthew has a couple of more questions. Let me, go back to him. One is Matthew is asking, this is very provocative. Okay, he said, can China be held accountable for the spread of COVID-19? Is it wrong or right in doing so?
My answer would be that we have to have more information about China and its role in producing this COVID-19 leakage. We don't have, China is a very closed system. They don't reveal everything, but they're claiming that they are the ones who have revealed this. Other countries have simply hushed up. So to blame China, we need more information. Our information is still not adequate. To say that leaked from Wuhan, a central Chinese city, and spread all over the world appears now very simplistic. Because many more people are doing research and saying that perhaps this is not correct. But people like President Trump are totally persuaded, convinced that China has done it and China should pay a price for it. But that's a different thing. Everyone is not as simple as Trump is, particularly research scholars and academics. They're not so simple in their thinking. So maybe that we need more information before we decide. This blame game requires a time gap.
Yeah. Okay, so that then we have a friend Narendra Kumar Jarwal. He's asking about, the preparedness in a desirable kind of, moral world order. So this question is like India's reaction to the pandemic was initially touted by the international community, and now is being told to take as a cautionary tale. How will a world order help in better preparation for a challenge the size of the COVID pandemic?
Well, answer is again in the field of speculation. Yes, we should be prepared. There are many shoulds that we should do, but we don't seem to be doing all this. And secondly, we have faced this kind of a virus for the first time. And this is an experience which we should analyze, we should study carefully and arrive at some conclusions. But the world, I thought, after Cold War is settling into, like, for example, President Yeltsin went to Washington and said, look, there is no difference between you and us now. You are also democratic, we are also democratic. It looked very good. Yes, there is something common in them, and we have come out of the Cold War. But very soon we have Putin falling back into the same trap. Now we have the United States either pushing China or China itself is going that way that they want to be contestants. China need not be contestants. They have come out with many such statements like, for example, there is enough room for India and China to coexist. Now, if you extend the logic to global level, then you have enough space for the United States and China to live together in peace. Why should you think only in terms of contest, war, and so on? I think mindset is very important. And this mindset is imposed on us through misinformation or disinformation. It is imposed on us. And we have to fight it out. For that, education is required. Research scholars like you should be educating the masses on a mass scale. Because people hardly know anything. You might be surprised to know the level of information and understanding of the people is very abysmally low. It has to increase, it has to grow. And what all of us can contribute to this process of growth of knowledge and understanding is something we should ponder over, we should ruminate. Because by just having a seminar or webinar like this may not actually help the process much. We have to all take up the cudgels and write and so on and so forth and raise the consciousness of the people. But will the governments allow that to happen? Difficult. But nonetheless, we should try.
Yeah, if I hope that we do not have many other questions, then now I hand it over to Ariba. Ariba, over to you.
Ariba, you're muted. Please unmute yourself.
Hello, are you able to hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfectly.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Dr. Anshuman Behra. I request Zeba Tamkanat, Vice President of AIDS, to give us the vote of thanks. Over to you, Zeba.
Thank you, Ariba. I am sure you will agree when I say that it is a true honor to hear Professor Moazzam speak. His lucid arguments, his enthusiastic delivery, and his command over the topic, as well as the depth of his knowledge, were inspiring. Added to that, it was a genuine pleasure to have such an enthusiastic participation from the audience. I thank the President of AIRS, Ariba Ehsanat, for conceptualizing, realizing, and bringing to fruition this inaugural lecture. I would like to now thank Professor Moazzam for taking time out of his busy schedule to join us.
Zeba, you are audible. Please continue.
Sorry about that. I would also like to thank Professor Moazzam for taking time out of his busy schedule to join us and give us this enlightening lecture. I thank all the members who have worked tirelessly to make this event possible, making special mention of Danish Haider, Narendra Kumar Jarwal, Mohammad Farizuddin, Salma Jahan, Vivek Andy, and Sai Amulya. I would also like to thank Anshuman Behera for helping us out today. I would like to specially thank I'm sorry about the distractions. Give me 1 second, please. I'm extremely sorry about that. Let me continue. I would like to specially thank Hania Heather for her untiring support, enthusiasm, and patience she has shown from the time of the inception of AIRS till today. We at AIRS are grateful for the support, enthusiasm, and determination of the speaker, Professor Moazzam, participants, and the team at AIRS. Under the unfailing guidance of our president, Ariba Ahsanat, this event was made possible. I would once again like to thank all the participants for joining us. Over to you, Ariba. Thank you.
Thanks, Zeba Tamkanant, for succinctly giving us the vote of thanks. You are too humble when you mention yourself in passing. You have been a pillar of strength throughout. I want to once again thank all of you, and with these closing statements, I call this event to end. Have a great day, and I hope to see all of you.
Ma'am, right, ma'am, I'm so sorry. Before you say bye-bye to everybody, I would like to personally thank my Professor Mohammad Moazzam Ali, sir. I'm Dr. Shailja Nandigama. I'm so sorry for the confusion. I'm using Chidalla Upendra's link because I didn't register in time. So I'm sorry for the mix-up. But sir, Moazzam Ali, sir, it is such a great pleasure and such an honor, to hear you again after so many years. And I would like to request you to show your cards one more time. Do you have your cards in your hands right now? You used to use the cards like the lecture cards. आपने अपने हाथों में लेक्चर कार्ड लगा के दिखाते थे हमको, लेक्चर देते थे. तो क्या आपके हाथों में अगर कार्ड्स हैं तो एक बार दिखा देंगे तो बहुत अच्छा लगेगा हमको. Otherwise, I'm so sorry for asking such unusual request to you.
Yeah, he has the cards. He has the cards.
I have been ailing for 3 years.
I will vouch for that.
Many of those habits are gone. I have some papers on which I have written some points. These
Okay,
are the
sir.
papers.
The size of the card has increased a
Those
bit.
constitute as cards only.
Yes,
Cards
I
only.
actually remember. I can quickly say it was a pleasure to be in your class, sir. And we used to see you,
Thank you.
take one by one systematically those cards and explain to us. It was very, very, the learning experience in your classes was extremely rich. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am, for that. Good, walk down the memory lane. With this, I call the event closed. I have a great day, and I hope to see all of you at our next e-lecture by Professor Zoya Hassan on the rise and fall of United Progressive Alliance. Good day and goodbye.
Bye. Take care.
Bye. Take care, everybody. Bye.
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 Come. Look at this. Finally.
Hi.
Yeah, that's Hania, right?
Yeah, there's the other one. Yeah.
Yeah. I say hi to Hania.
Hi, Hania.
Okay, my teacher. So namaste, sir.
Namaste, sir.
Hello, Hania.
No,
No, Abu, that is
Name is
Anshuman's daughter.
Anshumala.
Dr. Anshuman's daughter.
Oh, so lovely, Anshuman, to see your daughter.
Yeah, she just came from the dance class.
Hello, Bete, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, thank you very much. I hope to meet you sometime.
Okay. Once these lockdowns go, that time I will call you.
Oh, sure.
So cute.
Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye, everyone. Have a great day, and thank us once again for joining us.
Yeah. You too.
bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, Beta. Bye.
मम्मा चाय भिजाना कुछ